Sorry, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just working out a few things here on the tech side, trying to get the right screen pulled up. So let me just share my screen real quick. Yeah, so thank you all very much for joining us. Can everyone see my screen okay? And hear me okay? Okay, sounds good. We'll probably have a few more people coming in, but we're very excited to have you join us today for this World Food Forum event. And we're very excited to have our speakers representing different departments or different teams within the Slow Food Nippon team and community, and also Ainu and Ryukyu communities as well. So thank you guys for joining us as our guest speakers, and thank you all for joining us as attendees as well. We're quite excited to learn a bit more and discuss a bit more, and to give a little bit of background on the organizations representing. So my name is Chris Kraus. I'm working for Future Food Institute, leading the projects for Future Food here in Japan. And also on the call helping out is Hazuki Yasunaga. She does a lot of different things for Future Food, and today one of her roles will include live interpretation for a portion of the event. So most of the event will take place in English, but there will be some parts that are taking place in Japanese. We're going to have a Q&A session toward the back half of the event, and you can feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box that you should see on the bottom of your screen below, and we might be able to open it up to microphone for attendees as well. I still need to figure that tech piece out as we go. But you basically the live interpretation, you won't need to click on the interpretation button if that's showing up for you below your screen. This will just happen kind of ongoing or live. So okay, so quickly, just to give a little background on Future Food Institute and on some of what we're doing here in Japan. So for those of you who aren't familiar with FFI, we're a global ecosystem focused on education, community building, and innovation projects. Here in Japan, supported by the larger Future Food team, we engage in all of these activities to varying degrees. We engage in a number of events and activities focused on improving food systems and practices in terms of sustainability, equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Our activities in Japan are based at the Kyobashi Living Lab spaces in Tokyo. We work mainly from the Tokyo Food Lab space, the City Lab Tokyo space, and the Kitchen Studio Suiba space. This is all, if you guys get the chance to come visit us, which hopefully you will, considering the state of emergency has been recently lifted. This is just east of Tokyo Station, just north of Ginza. So we've been doing quite a few online events, as you might imagine, but we'll be doing a lot more public-facing offline events in these spaces in the coming weeks and months. Although it's not listed or mentioned on the map here, there's another exciting and innovative kind of street food market that's happening right up the street from this that our partners are running and that we'll be involved with too, called Beat Yaesu, which is different food trucks and an event space for kind of innovative food makers and startups and some chefs. And that actually launches this Friday, October 8th. So be sure to check that out as well. Oh, sorry. Next up, I just wanted to show our calls to action, which serve a bit as a roadmap for our work here in Japan. We developed these calls to action following an intensive research project, interviewing a wide variety of food-focused stakeholders in Japan. So these are the primary areas where we feel like well-positioned to have a positive impact in Japan, considering our strengths and experiences and incorporating many of the needs we heard from the food community here. So for today's event and for our further work with Slow Food Nippon and the Ainu and Ryukyu communities, I think many of these calls to action are quite relevant. Some that stick out would be like number 15, elevating craft heritage, number 8, cultivate and foster shared values, and also number 3, reconnect with and reimagine washoku, or at the very least, if it's not washoku, at least learning about the real original foods and ingredients of the lands of modern day Japan from the indigenous communities here. So I think all of our presenters today will speak to this to some extent. And I think what Megumi has to share around the Ark of Taste project will serve as quite an interesting look at this and how we consider the biodiversity and cultural diversity of Japan through a more holistic and a more accurate perspective. So lastly, this is just a bit of practical to follow along with and connect with us. These are kind of some of the best ways to stay connected for future events and activities. So that's the website there on the upper left, and then Kiyobashi Living Lab is our Instagram handle, and then Future Food Japan on Facebook. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Megumi. So I think we're going to go in the order of Megumi first, and then Kayo-san presenting, and then Dai presenting, and then we'll go into the discussion and the Q&A. So thanks very much. I'll stop sharing screen and get to the chat and any questions which might be happening now. But yeah, I'll pass it over now to Megumi.
Okay, I will share my screen in a few seconds. Let me. Okay. I hope everyone can see it. Good. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Chris, for inviting over. And I'm honored to speak here today. I am Megumi Watanabe from Slow Food Nippon. And Slow Food Nippon is a Japanese organization of international NGO, Slow Food. And Slow Food is, let me start with a little bit of introduction of Slow Food. And Slow Food was founded in Italy in 1986. And it's a grassroots movement to change the food system for the better, and a nonprofit organization. And it was started in a small town in northern Italy called Bra. And it has a 30 plus years of history now. And over the past 30 years, we now have a global network with more than 1 million people in over 160 countries, mobilizing all the people in the food chain: farmers, cooks, distributors, researchers, and citizens. We Slow Food envision a world in which all people can access and enjoy good, clean, and fair food. The power of food is its simplicity and joy. And we believe that food is tied to many other aspects of life, including culture, politics, agriculture, and the environment. Food is very essential to every single person on the planet, and everyone is a stakeholder. Through our food choices, we can collectively influence how food is cultivated, produced, and distributed, and change the world as a result. Our main focuses in our activities are three. One is preserving cultural and biological diversity. Two is education for a wider world. And three is advocacy. Today, I'm going to mainly talk about diversity. So what is biodiversity? There are three types of biological diversity: gene, species, and ecosystems. And in addition to those biological diversity, we also focus on cultural diversity that is linked to languages, practices, traditions, customs, beliefs, and so on and so. We believe that all the living things are interconnected, and guaranteeing biological and cultural diversity is the key for resilient and sustainable future, given that there are so many challenges for human beings like climate crisis and the pandemic. So this is a data from FAO. It estimates that over the last 100 years, 75% of crop varieties have been irreversibly lost. And 60% of all consumed calories is made up of only three crops: wheat, rice, and corn. And out of 8,800 edible animal breed, 26% is at the risk of extinction. And each year, it's incredible that 27,000 species are lost forever, for good. And that is 3 species per hour. And many scientists are warning that this is the 6th biggest extinction. It will be coming soon for the first time in 66 million years. And 66 million years ago is when dinosaurs became extinct. And this time, the 6th extinction is undeniably due to human activities. So what we do is Ark of Taste. It is our longest and largest project. And its objective is to collect the information of small-scale quality productions that belong to the cultures, history, and traditions from all around the world, and make it into a huge catalog. Today, we have more than 5,500 foods registered on the Ark of Taste. And from Japan, there are more than 70 now. You can see, it's not all of the registered products, but you can see the map where we are mapping very unique products in local areas. So it can go from a species of animal breed, a variety of vegetable, also manufacturing methodology, like soy sauce made in wooden barrel, or bonito fish preserved in salt. We also work a lot with indigenous communities worldwide as Slow Food International. And in Japan, we work closely with Ainu community and Ryukyu community. And this, in fact, is also in the context of biodiversity. And here's a short clip to explain why we work with indigenous communities. Yeah, so as you saw in the clip, despite of the fact that indigenous communities around the world are having a crucial role for our protecting biodiversity for all humankinds, and we human beings all need to learn from them and try to empower them and protect their culture. But still, they are facing a lot of systematic injustice. And that is why we empower each other. But rather than claiming inequality and human rights and land rights in the people's face and complaining about it, we want to approach with a joy and deliciousness. Food connects everyone. So people who had not known about indigenous people at all until yesterday might be interested in if there is a good and unique food and joy. And that can be a first step for them to know more about the real situation we are in. I am sure that following speakers will explain more about the details, so I won't talk about it too much. But for example, we organize international gatherings with indigenous peoples. And actually, we did one in Japan, Hokkaido, in 2019, as Ainu women as the host. We also participate in the world biggest food event Slow Food organizes, called Terra Madre Salón del Gusto. And there, indigenous communities around the world gather as well to exchange their challenges, success stories, and their richest heritage, and give each other healings and inspirations. In Japan, we also do research and put the information up on Ark of Taste catalog from Ainu and Ryukyu community. And I'm sure for more details, Dai and Kayo-san will speak. So now I'll give the floor to the next speaker, Kayo-san.
私も喋っても大丈夫ですか？イランカラプテ、ただいまご紹介いただきました月山佳代です。スローフードコミュニティアイヌ食を守るアイヌ女性の会のメンバーです。
Okay, let me translate that. So, hello, my name is Kayo, and she is a member of the Ainu community protecting their culture. And she began by saying Iran Karapte, which means hello in Ainu.
まずはアイヌ民族について簡単に説明させていただきます。アイヌ民族は日本の先住民族で、北海道千島列島、樺太、本州の東北部で暮らしていました。日本の大多数を占める和人とは異なるルーツを持ち、独自の言語と文化を持ち、独自の歴史を築いていました。先住民族について追加で説明させていただきますと、先住民族はその土地に先に住んでいた人々ではなくて、ある地域を現在支配している国家よりも、その以前よりもその土地に住んで民族としてのアイデンティティを共有してきた人のことを指します。先住民族とは近代国家の植民地化政策、同化政策の犠牲になった集団のことであり、私たちアイヌも日本人によって民族の文化や生活様式が奪われました。今を生きる私たちアイヌは、現在は和人とほとんど変わらない生活を送っていて、北海道には1万6000人のアイヌ民族がいると言われていますが、差別を恐れて公表していない人もたくさんいるので、実数はもっと多いと言われています。関東圏に住むアイヌも5000人ぐらいいると言われています。今もアイヌの歌や踊り、料理、工芸品などの伝承文化を継続している団体も数多く存在しますが、アイヌ民族の祖先を持っていたり、本人のアイデンティティがアイヌであればアイヌであります。
Okay, so the definition. So first of all, who are the Ainu people? So the Ainu people originated in Hokkaido region, which is also known for the Ainu land, and the majority of Japanese, ex-Japanese people who were called Wajin, they were different from the Wajin people, and the Ainu people were colonized by the Japanese people or the Wajin, and a lot of the Ainu people even now hide their identities in fear of discrimination. And now there are 16,000 Ainu people living in Hokkaido. However, a lot of people prefer to keep it a secret, so the actual number is said to be higher. There's also said to be 5,000 Ainu people living in the Kanto area, so around Tokyo. And there are also some groups that preserve Ainu dance or crafts currently active.
一つ前のスライドにしてもらっていいですか。すいません。その次でお願いします。私たちは、スローフードの人たちとアイヌ食を皆さんに親しんでもらいたいと思って、 たくさんのお弁当を、作って皆さんに食べてもらってきました。アイヌ食を知ってもらうために、またアイヌ食を通じてアイヌの文化を知ってもらうために、いろんなお弁当を食を通じて、アイヌ食のことを知ってもらって、アイヌ文化に親しんでもらえればなと思ってます。
So she and her Ainu community have collaborated with Slow Food Nippon in order to raise awareness of Ainu foods. They've made bento lunch boxes like these.
これは、駅弁で、駅弁の会社と、アイヌ料理をコラボして紹介したもので、第1弾、第2弾と2つのお弁当を販売して、いろんな人に食べてもらいました。
So these are called ikiben, which is a traditional Japanese bento that is sold in train stations. So people can eat those lunch boxes during their long distance train rides. And there are two series, one is on the left and the other on the right.
また、アイヌ食がどのように作られてきたのかということを知ってもらいたくて、YouTube でも、いろんな動画を作りました。キトピロ、プクサと呼ばれる餃子ニンニクを収穫したときは、小さいものは次の年に残しておいて、全部を取り尽くさないというようなアイヌの知恵を教えてもらいました。
Okay, so Kaya-san started her YouTube channel to spread the knowledge of culinary knowledge of the Ainu people. And here is a photo of them collecting something called gyoza garlic. And gyoza? I think it's gyoza. Gyoza ですか？
餃子。
And gyoza ですか？
はい。
あ、なるほど。It's called gyoza garlic. And they have teachings, so they leave smaller garlics for the next year to harvest, so they don't take all of them at once.
あと、トノトと呼ばれる儀式に使われるお酒も作ったんですけれども、その時に教えてくれた年長者の方が発酵を進めるために自分は樽を炊いて寝るんだよということを教えてもらったりとか、いろんな昔の思い出話も教えてもらって、でそれで、私も実際にトノトを作ったんですけれども、とても美味しいトノトが作ることができました。
So there's a sake or an alcohol drink called Tonto, is that right?
トノト
Tonto, sorry. And it's drunk for Ainu festivals. And when they were making this, an Ainu gentleman told her he usually sort of hugs the barrel of sake in order to sort of increase or sort of push the fermentation.
あとは、昆布シトと呼ばれる昆布のお団子も作りました。昆布を揚げて、細かく砕いてから甘みをつけてお団子にする。これも儀式に備えるものなんですけれども、とても手間をかけて作っていたんだなということが分かりました。
She also made something called kombu shito. So shito is a dango or a sort of, it may not be made of rice, but they're sort of similar to rice balls. And these are also eaten during festivals. And she had a try and made very nice kombu shitos.
そして、今はあまり食べられることがなくなってしまった、植物についても、調べるために、年長者の方と北海道大学の植物を見に案内してもらいました。
So there are some vegetables or plants that aren't really consumed anymore. And she went together with some elders to the Hokkaido University to investigate more about this.
その季節や地域によって取れるものがいろいろあるんですけれども、自然に感謝しながら、神に感謝しながら、一番いいものは薬に使ったりとか、2番目のものは保存食に使ったりとか、様々な工夫がされていました。
So it really depends on the season, what you can find. But they remember to thank God and thank nature when going foraging into the forests. And there are many teachings, like they preserve the good quality crops or good quality plants for making medicine. And maybe second quality, that's slightly low quality than the medicine. They usually use it for preservatives.
あと、いろんな年長者の当時の思い出を聞いてるうちに、図鑑とかインターネットだけで知るだけでなくて、当時の生活や生活の知恵とか工夫を知ることができました。これをもとにイペアンローという絵本を作りました。イペアンローは食べましょうという意味です。
So she had a lot of sessions talking with the Ainu elders, and she obtained lots of teachings which she couldn't get from encyclopedias or from the internet, which led to this Ipe Anro book. Ipe Anro means let's eat.
この絵本を見たときに、当時の生活しているアイヌがどのように生活していたのか、動物と自然とどうやって生きていたのか、生き生きしている姿が目に浮かぶようで、本当に素晴らしい絵本だと思います。
So this picture books teach us how the Ainu people used to live back in the day and how they coexisted with nature.
これからも私自身が楽しくアイヌ文化のことを勉強して、今を生きるみんなに伝えていきたい。さらには、後世みんなに伝えていきたいという思いを持って、この活動を続けていきたいと思っています。
She would like to continue doing what she is doing now, and not just enjoying, well, she wants to enjoy learning herself and also pass it on to those who are alive now, but also those who are yet to come. So children and people who are yet to be born.
以上です。ありがとうございました。
Thank you for listening. That's all from her.
Okay, we'll now go over to Dai whenever you're ready. Thank you. Thank you, Kayo-san.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having us over. It's an honor to be with Future Food Institute and be a panel for the World Food Forum. I'd like to share a little bit of our community, Ryukyu. We are called as Ryukyu at the same time, but we call ourselves Ryukyu, like in different ways. I'd like to share my screen as well. And hi, everybody. I'm Dai Takabayashi. I'm sort of leader of Slow Food Ryukyu team. It's branch in Okinawa, branch of Slow Food Nippon. And I'd like to share a little bit of our food practices. And these are the people, half of our Slow Food Ryukyu team, when we joined the Indigenous Teramadre in Hokkaido, what Megumi and Kayo-san shared that they hosted in 2019. We joined as a Slow Food Ryukyu team. It was one of a good memory. Okay, so to speak about our food practice, it's better that I share a little bit of Ryukyu community. I think half of our audience is Japanese, so probably they are familiar with what Ryukyu is, but Ryukyu Islands, now it's known as Okinawa Prefecture. It's said that these islands have been inhabited for more than 32,000 years. But Ryukyu Kingdom was established in 1429 and existed for about 450 years. And a kingdom lasted more than 450 years is very, very unique in the world. And we are so proud of it. And in 1879, maybe Japanese do know this, but Ryukyu disposition happened, which is like Japanese military force came into Okinawa and forcibly integrated into Japan. And also during World War II in 1945, Japanese military force used Ryukyu Island, which is Okinawa Prefecture as of right now, as the battlefield, and it was severely damaged. And after the war, Okinawa became a prefecture of Japan and was under US controlled until 1972. And after 1972, Okinawa became back again a part of Japan, and it lasts until now. And when we talk about Okinawan food culture or Ryukyu food culture, people instantly think about the long life, because in 2000 or something, it was introduced as longevity islands in, I think, in New York Times or something. And it really was the islands of long life until 2000. But today we mark 36 out of 47 prefectures. It says there are several reasons mentioned by doctors, researchers, but we feel in our islands that there were a change of the staple food, because our grandparents' era or their generation, their staple food were potatoes. But once we became to part of Japan, we started to eat white rice. And that was one of the turning point that people started to become overweight and so on. And definitely Western food influence was one of the big change brought by US military, because US military import fast foods from America, and it was distributed throughout Okinawa. So when after the World War II, Battle of Okinawa, when nothing was left, people were starving, US military were serving or distributing canned food, salted like pork and everything. And people started to like it because everybody was starving. And so that's why our grandparents' generation actually like the pork canned. And now everybody probably know about this fast food in Okinawa, pork, egg, onigiri, rice bowls. And that's not our food culture. And also, so with the westernized food, fast foods, people left island veggies behind. So seasonal local foods to convenient industrialized food. And also agriculture became very much commercialized. So we were producing to eat, but it got changed to produce to sell. I think one of the biggest commercialized food was Goya, because of the Okinawa featured TV program, Chura-san. Goya became very, very famous. And Goya was one of the unique icon of longevity. So everybody wanted. So it became very much commercialized and people started to produce to sell, not within Okinawa. So in order to change all these perspective, to approach to the food of our natural local food, we thought Ark of Taste project is a very, very, very strong tool for us. So we start to list all the veggies or the food that are left behind or close to extinct, we try to reach to the farmers, producers who has the seeds and document it and nominate to the Ark of Taste. So those 8 ones are the one now registered, but we're still in the research field stage. So we try to nominate as much as we can. So one of those black pig called Shimawa is one of the unique icon that we used to eat those indigenous pigs, but because of its productivity, the low productivity, people try to bring white pigs from Western countries, and they try to make hybrid ones. And those natural indigenous species were like very shrink to the small numbers. So try to raise awareness of what we are doing. So using this beans at the left top, this is called ohigu. It's one of the indigenous soybeans we have in our islands. We try to make tofu with this. So we organize some workshop with other associations, which are a big association that are protecting the seeds of ohigu. And we organize those workshop with the local people and also Ainu Ryukyu members. And since it was in very early 2020 or 2019, so it was without COVID-19, so we could have this eating moment together, and we were able to use the ishiusu to create the shima tofu. And also we are developing picture book project, learning from Ainu's project, Ipeanlo, that Kayo-san just presented. We are working with Slow Food Nippon to create a picture book for one of our Ark of Taste called Funuyu. So the one on the right bottom, the hanging fish meat is Funuyu. So I think, Megumi, if you can help me, Funuyu in English is mahi mahi. Is it English? Okay.
I
So
think it's
mahi-mahi.
Hawaiian. I think it's Hawaiian, but
Exactly.
people
Yeah.
understand it as mahi mahi.
Okay. So yeah. So mahi mahi comes all the way up to Okinawa. So in northern part of Okinawa, it's called Kunigami Village. They have this very, very, very unique environment, like a natural environment with huge mountain, and the village sites along the beach side. And with this high mountain, when it's around October to November, December, the white wind comes in and it hits the mountain. So this wind flow is very severe and very cold. So it brings very dry wind. So it can dry this mahi mahi called funuyu very in a very nice way. So it can sun dry, and it increases the preservation duration very long. So people use this hanging thing and dried it. So this is one of the preserved food for Kunigami area called Ginama district. So when we nominated this to Ark of Taste, we decided to develop a picture book, and this year currently we are working on it. So as Megumi shared that Slow Food has 3 pillars of our action plan: defending the biodiversity and education and advocacy. So Slow Food Ryukyu, we are following those 3 pillars, and we try to register as much as indigenous seeds and foods of Ryukyu or Okinawa to Ark of Taste, and try to document and film the food culture of ourselves. And also for the education, we create opportunities for children, chefs, and food industry workers to learn about our food cultures, like what we did with Ohigu for Shima Tofu. And regarding the advocacy, we try to get connected with local government or other associations to deliver the messages of slow food to the public and reach wider fields. So creating this picture book would definitely reach to the education in, area field, so that we can bring those books to the schools, so that people, children in that area will understand how clever, how smart the local people are and were, and inherited those knowledge and wisdom from our ancestors. And when we revalue our own food culture, people start to think, okay, so those convenient food, those industrial fast food is, when they realize if that is harming our environment as a whole, we know how to go back to our basics. And if we go back to our basics, we know we can inherit the knowledge and skills and even the philosophy. So that would definitely restore the food sovereignty. When we lost the food sovereignty, people start to become overweight or diabetes. Those are happening in all over the world, and especially for the indigenous peoples, because we lose our own food culture. And when we lose our food culture, we just need to buy from, or we just need to receive the food from colonizer, and that will damage our health. And that is the big problem big problem we all face as indigenous communities as a whole. And we think when we bring back our food sovereignty, if we go back to indigenous seeds, those seeds are indigenous to our lands. So that means those are harmonized with our environment, sunlight, water, and the soil and everything. Well, so it's very strong, and it can beat the disease or bugs. So we can actually grow them. But because of the convenience of the seed harvesting, we just buy the seeds from mainland Japan or some other countries. And when we try to produce them, we need to use fertilizers or pesticides because they're not natural to our land. So when we go back to indigenous seeds, we can protect those and we can protect our environment. And also, we don't need to import food, so that we don't need to use the energy, or we don't need to, how do I say, the CO2 emissions. So yeah, if we restore the food sovereignty and if we go back to the basic, I think the very, very positive impacts can be happened in a very different ways, in various ways. So that's the key message, and that's what we are working on it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Dai, and thank you guys all for your presentations. That was very informative. Let me change the view here to see if this will work. Wait, are we in gallery view now? Uh-oh. Here's gallery view, but I think it's only going to show up to the audience when other people. Actually, can you guys maybe try going off mute and see if that will work?
I'm actually seeing the gallery view now, so I think it's working.
Okay. From the audience perspective, I don't think it is. but it's okay. I think it will just probably switch when when other people are speaking. So yeah, so thank you guys very much. I think that's yeah, and just a reminder, if anyone in the meantime, while we're having this discussion, wants to pop any questions to, I opened up both the chat box and the yeah, so the guests aren't currently seeing the gallery view, unfortunately. I have the weird immersive view, but that's just going to look strange to everyone. So I've opened up the chat box and the Q&A for all attendees as well, in case anyone wants to ask any questions. But we're gonna kick it off with a few questions from our side to kind of get things going. So but yeah, we encourage anyone to ask anything they might want to. So I mean, kind of and I guess I can start with this question. Like in all three of the presentations, I was kind of thinking a little bit about, food sovereignty is obviously one of the main goals, right? And it seems like, of course, this is a problem all over the world, I think, with globalization and large businesses going in and selling crap food to small communities, basically, that maybe used to have probably much healthier foods. Like I was reading the state of Oaxaca in Mexico has recently, I think, banned sugary drinks, or maybe banned like all kinds of, I think it was maybe just drinks, but that's like a large step forward. And that kind of got me thinking, sometimes it seems maybe unfortunately like the only way to stop some of those food companies from coming in and selling products in certain areas is through policy measures, and I was just wondering, I guess if it's not through policy measures, are there some examples of where we can have, smaller communities or perhaps indigenous communities, gaining food sovereignty? And if it is through policy measures, is that something you guys engage with in Japan, or have seen any progress towards in Japan or otherwise? So I guess we can ask that to, first we'll start with Dai and Megumi-san, and then also we can turn it over to Kayo-san also afterwards. Yeah.
Am I supposed to speak?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the theme, food sovereignty, it's not only about indigenous peoples, but it's about all the human beings, I would say, from farmers, from retailers, from everyone, to determine what they want to do, what they want to produce, what they want to eat, and what they want to choose to buy, and to have the right of choice is the food sovereignty. And recently, with the pandemic, I hear the news that in the States there is the lack of people working on the fields because it was hugely relying on the immigrants, mostly illegal immigrants, and that leads to increasing the price of the food. And I actually heard, my husband is a farmer, and they were saying that the price of soybeans goes up by 1.8, so 180%. And Japan relies a lot on imported soybeans for animal feeds and everything. And this will lead to overall increase in the food price. Do we want that? We don't, right? And we want to select the seeds that we want to grow we want to, we want to decide how to use our own land for what. And we, whether or not we realize or we don't know, we are slowly losing our own control. And that is the key point that slow food wants to bring attention to. But discussing this kind of difficult topics is not that appealing, to be honest. And talking about food policies and calling for signatures and putting spotlights on dark sides and human rights and land rights problems, it's so difficult and it's complicated, and it's actually no one's fault, it's everyone's fault. And so we want to put a bright side, good food, sharing a good meal with lovely people in a cool setting, So starting from sharing a good meal with good vibes, we can probably talk about some challenges that we face on a daily basis. And what slow food wants to do is to connect that kind of dots, kind of connect those people and bring them together. And slow food wants to work as a bridge.
Thank you, Megumi. Thank you for Chris for the questions. Other than like government policies, do we can make like a big impact? I think it's the question that we're asking ourselves like a daily basis. I think when you're talking about the sugared food, I think in states, indigenous communities try to bring in the sugar tax because of too much of the diabetes and overweight problem. So those kind of things, I think it's possible, and we would like to make it happen in Japan too, because we are importing so much canned industrialized food, especially in our like smaller islands. When the typhoon hits, we need to rely on those like dried food or canned food. And that's a huge problem for us. So I do really hope that local governments realize how important that we establish this resilient food system for our own islands. But they're on this like commercial, economical side, local governments are. So we need to do something our own. And one of the example is, so I talk about tofu so much, but when Japanese government or Japanese new law or legislation or policies said that you cannot sell hot tofu in supermarket and all over Japan. So if you go to supermarket, other than Okinawa, I think you cannot buy hot tofu. It's just always cold storage tofu, unless you go to tofu shop directly. But Okinawan people, because Okinawan people do not eat cold ones, we just freshly made ones. So tofu producers became a association, and they protested to the new policy, and that's why we can still buy hot tofu. It's called achikoko tofu in Okinawan supermarket. So yes, the producers can make change, but I think when it's directly related to economical problem, so if those tofu producers cannot make living, if they lose achikoko tofu and they need to just store all the cold tofu, then people would lose jobs. That's why I think they listen to this association. So I don't know. We need to change this perspective that economic is the center of this society. No, it's our lives. It's like how how can we share the happiness? How can we be ourselves? The sovereignty. So those like mind shift needs to be happen. I think. I don't know. I'm answering correctly, but yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that was a super valuable and great responses from both you guys. And Megumi, to the point that you made, kind of also about it being, yeah, these things being difficult and not always like happy, you know, to talk about, and actually sometimes with tragic and bloody history and difficult history to face, I think, in the cases where it's not you know, related to where it's not as bad, but in Japan, certainly, this is kind of a difficult story. In the US, where I'm from as well, with indigenous communities, it's quite a difficult story, and can be everywhere. But so I think you're right in the sense of approaching it with like a solution story kind of mindset, or in a way that people can kind of get on board and be interested. But also I think it's okay, and I hope that as Future Food and like all of us can also, when the time is right, also like dive into the difficult discussions as well, because, you know, I mean, oh sorry, the 4:30 bell's going off out here in Shonan now, but but yeah, I mean, we have these kind of forums all the time, right? I mean, like Food Summit and World Food Forum and stuff, and I think it's great to celebrate the good things, but I think we also need to be quite honest about what needs to change as well, you know. And I think it's okay to discuss some of the more difficult things, and I'm not saying we have to do so right on this call, but creating occasions where we can, you know, discuss what needs to change policy wise, and things like that, like both in Japan, outside of Japan as well. So yeah, we had a question. And I'm sorry, Kayo-san, I don't want to exclude you from the Q&A here. So maybe we'll start to translate over chat some of the things, and you can provide answer there. But we did have a question here. Let's see, from Chitana Panda. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And I was gonna actually just open up your microphone, so you might be able to just ask here. Let me see. Oh yeah. Oh, can I do this? Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. So let me allow Chetana to speak real quick. And her question was around, can people living away from Okinawa also make healthy meals using the same ingredients? So I think that can lead to some interesting discussion, what you might mean by the same ingredients. But I'll allow you to kind of dive into that a little bit more. Okay, let's see.
Hi, I
Hi.
hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm Chetna, I'm from India, and I was very moved by this topic that was about Okinawan people living in the blue zones and having a very healthy meal. So me belonging from India, we also have a very healthy meal, but then there are times when I actually, question about why is it that people have a lot of sugar issues, and why is it people that have a lot of heart issues or stuff like that. So this is probably a question that will be a little directing to Dai-chan and Kayo-chan. So one of you can answer it. It would be really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Chetna. Thank you very much. So your question was, using the same ingredients means the one produced in Okinawa and you bring it to India and consume there?
No, by same ingredients, I mean there are few vegetables or produce that's in Okinawa and also in India.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to know, like, at the end of the day, the ingredients are the same. So is it the environment that issues, or the production that issues, the that is very different in Okinawa, or is it something that can be done in other places as well?
I see. Okay. It's just like based on my opinion, but yes, if your ancestors or your communities have been consuming those same kind of ingredients in a same kind of balance as Okinawan or the Lutruans, then definitely yes, we can have the same like healthy diet there. But this is one of the big problem that so identifying what are the best meals for one person. I didn't find the uh, how do I say the
The
how
perfect meal
much
for someone.
like how much calories, how much calcium, how much those essentials. That's decided in Japan. That's decided in Tokyo, or those like higher people are deciding on what you should eat. But that doesn't apply to Okinawa because we are basically different ethnicity, and basically we are different countries and different people and different diet we used to have. So you can't apply that to us. And we don't, if we don't produce, for example, apple doesn't, we don't produce apple in Okinawa. But if they say apple is the best thing you should eat, then everybody goes for apple. And that would cause the problem. And that has been causing the problem for everyone, not only in indigenous people in Japan, but also, for example, Aboriginal peoples in Australia, people in Hawaii, like different countries, because we are forced and under the impression of indigenous people are civilized, so they need to follow what the central government says. So if this kind of mindset goes around, that would make the problem. So for India, I think people are following the basics. That's why they can stay healthy. So like it's not about like which country, which people are eating this much of that ingredient. It's more like what can be grown in any place and what kind of balance they are consuming and how much exercise they involve in everyday lives and everything, how much salt you use. And so I don't know, we can't just like say Okinawan diet can be applied to any other places, to my opinion.
Thank you so much, Taichan. Actually, I think that sort of answered my question, because there's this time when I have been a fan of milk products since I was a kid, but then now I am lactose intolerant. But you know, now I cannot actually eat the favorite food of mine. And but I did observe one thing, that my grandparents, who are told to be older and cannot actually take milk products, they have absolutely no issues doing that. I
Mhm.
think the reason they have it like that, it's because they have never gotten out of the village or the locality that they lived in. But for me, I have moved over places and changed my food habits. I think that is what affected me. So the first time I actually came across Okinawan diet was in the book of Ikigai. I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm pronouncing it. I'm
Ikigai,
pronouncing that
yes.
right. But yes, I think that was where my food habits sort of changed. So thank you so much again for explaining that. That answered my question. But if anybody would, please feel free to join the conversation. They can. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, like exact the same sad story happens around me because my grandparents love the pork can. And also I'm in small islands in Okinawa prefecture, but my neighbors, they're all in, they're elders. They bring me so many canned food or like convenience store food. But those are something that they think it's valuable things, and that's something, fancy, because it came from mainland Japan. Because of this like mindset that Okinawa is always like at the bottom and Tokyo is always the best or something like that. So I always feel very sad, and I really hope that sovereignty will be restored and we regain our like confidence in our own culture, own living, and yeah, decolonize our tongue as well.
That's a
Yeah, thank you guys. I
Mm.
love decolonizing the tongue. That's super important. I actually had a question. So we've been talking a lot about food and how Indigenous cultures have, different attitudes towards like food, and then I guess that goes back to nature as well. So, I mean, now we live in a society that's kind of taken over by the Western views of globalization. So nature is something we want to measure and control. But I was wondering what kind of views or attitudes the Ryukyu people or Ainu people have towards nature. And quickly, do you mind if I translate to Kayo-san here? Thanks. かよさん、次の質問なんですが、そうですね、これまでその食に関しての話が大半だったんですけれども、それってこう遡ると多分自然観とか自然に対してどういう姿勢で、対峙しているかっていう話にもなると思うんですが、アイヌの文化の中で自然っていうのはどういう存在なんでしょうか？ So any of you can go ahead. どうぞ。
自然、人間と神様がいて、人間と神様は対等で、神様が、そうですね、人間界に来るのは、人が持ってる食べ物、タバコとか、嗜好品が欲しいから来て、で、その代わりに、いろんな、動物の神様だったら、動物の肉を届けてくれる。で、その代わりに、人間は、嗜好品を神様にあげて、で、神様がまた神の国に帰るときに、人間界ってとってもいいとこだったよっていうようなお話をして、また神が恵みをもたらせてくれるというような対等の関係だったということを、そういうような、そうですね、世界観でした。
ありがとうございました。ちょっと翻訳させていただきます。That was very interesting. So Kayo-san told us about how in the Ainu culture, humans and gods, they were equals, they were on the same level. And the gods came down to the humans' world because they wanted food and they wanted things like tobacco, maybe alcohol, these sort of, not entertainment, but leisures that humans produce. And so in return, humans will give the gods like animal meat if it's like the animal god, and then they do this exchange. So then afterwards the gods go back to their own worlds thinking, oh, what a wonderful place it was, and we want to continue this relationship, which is very interesting, very different, I think, from other religions or cultures as well, and very different from what we believe now. So ありがとうございました。Thank you, Kayo-san.
Okay, Hazuki-san, thank you for your question. It's a little similar to Ainu people, but a little different because we also believe that gods are in every piece of nature, and nature is always the object of our faith as well. So we pray to the mountains, we pray to the oceans, we pray to even like rocks, woods, and everything. And also we always have this relationship that nature is accepting us, like not we are on top of nature, and we are receiving the blessings from the nature, and when we receive it, we share the happiness with the family or the community. So, and also when our ancestors or elders go to the other side, then they will stay in the nature, and also they see us all the time. And also at time to time, they come back to our home and they celebrate the time together, and they go back to nature again. And so we do not think about controlling nature at all.
Okay, thank you, Dai-san. Megumi-san, would you like to comment on this, or would you rather go to the next question?
I think we can go to the next question.
Okay.
Cool. I wanted to quickly just follow up on what Dai was kind of speaking about, and I guess the question just before last one toward the end, where you said that like sometimes now people living in like Ryukyu communities or in Okinawa sometimes see what's coming from the mainland as kind of like the, you know, what should be eaten, what should be consumed. And I guess, yeah, of course, that's quite unfortunate, because we're all none of us are immune from like the mass market messaging of what we should be or what we should do. It's oppressive. It's difficult to get away from it. But how do you think, like in this day and age, you know, if anything, sometimes it seems that the messaging is even more intense with social media constantly. But maybe that could also be turned in a more positive light. But I guess I just wanted to ask all of you guys maybe like what you think of what are some of the things that might take to where local or indigenous communities or groups are able to find the strength to recognize, you know, to be able to say like no to what's coming from outside. And it's quite difficult because you also we're all curious about what's coming from outside, but there should be an appreciation for what's, you know, local. So how do you like ingrain the appreciation of local and like the appreciation of heritage into communities or young people or older people? Like I'm wondering how that can successfully be done, both for Japan and for everywhere, really. Yeah.
I think we should definitely take advantage of this modern technology age, rather than being manipulated and breed into it. We are born into this world, this generation, and we can easily interact with people outside. And the problem is just the mindset and having the world we want or you want. I mean, people nowadays don't really have an ideal world or ideal place they want to be in, and having that in, like, each person having that in mind would change situation whole a lot. And if they know the meaning of life and the world they want, they would easily decide what to do, you know. And it's starting from choosing the place to live in and choosing the food they eat. And it's not about hierarchy, you know. It's not about what is better. It's all good, and you are free to choose it from anything. But if you have the ideal future for yourself, you will know what to choose. And if you want your local area, if you want the place you were born in to be sustainable, or to be to have abundant ecosystem, you might want to choose a local food. You might want to choose a a local food that was produced by your friend. And it's all about having an ideal in your mind, and it's totally okay to, you know, eat Italian cheese, you know, like those fancy foods, so to say, because it's good. It's totally okay, I think. It's not like sacrificing your pleasure for sustainable and ethical living. But if you naturally choose what you want, there will be a sustainable world. And we want to, you know, we want to slowly influence people so that people can have their own choice with their own, you know, power. And do we want more people to choose fast food, industrialized food? Maybe not. But nowadays, many people do choose it because they don't have enough education, they don't have enough knowledge, they don't have ideal. But what we are doing is to have places for people to get in and think about it, learn more, and exchange. And we want the number of people grow doing it. And that is the only way to go, I think.
Okay, probably I'd like to share my perspective. So this is actually related to why I'm part of the food movement. So when I realized like how, you know, until like I graduated university or like until I became 25 or something, I didn't really know. I didn't really like consciously think about we are colonized and we are very much controlled and we don't have sovereignty. But around 25, when I realized that, I was like, okay, we need to stop like pretending we don't know anything and we just follow what the Japanese government says. And we try to convert ourselves to Hawaii, and our real Okinawa will be gone forever. So when I start to think about that, I thought we need to change the food system first. And then I met slow food, and slow food wasn't, the very first step was not all about indigenous peoples when I met slow food. Slow food is making action towards the colonization of the food system. So the big companies are colonizing the food system, and then locals or the small producers are very much exploited. So slow food is talking about these systems. And when we think about this big system of colonization, we might, our people, Ryukyu people, start to realize, okay, our society, the modern living we're in, is something weird, something very unnatural. And we start to think about, okay, this is not what we used to have as our ancestors, or this is not what we are supposed to have in our natural environment. And then they will start thinking, because in our education system, we will know, our society tells us that there was a Ryukyu disposal, but we don't really understand that this is the colonization. So when we think about food system, and if we talk about decolonization of the food system, we will think about our society's decolonization and then restoring the sovereignty back. So it's all about education. And when people realize more bigger voice would insist of the sovereignty, and we can actually make the change in the world. That's what I do believe and hope. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. It's like an interesting kind of thing that I've noticed as well. As you're talking about this, like, I mean, for me personally, like I've had the privilege, like to be born into a certain culture and to, you know, I guess make enough or be in a position to where I can travel to some different places and taste different foods and stuff. And what interests me now after having traveled and tasted different foods, or even if it's in my own country, being able to taste imported foods and stuff like that, because you're curious to, and then you do it, and then you kind of boomerang back to thinking, actually, you know, what's cooler is like local food, like as local as possible. And and so it's just kind of interesting to think about how, you know, if it's ever going to be possible to, because yeah, as Megumi said, it's interesting, and it's not a bad thing to eat, you know, good cheese from Italy, or to try like maybe a nice wine from France every now and then. Of course, our insane globalized food system is a bit out of control with what all we're shipping around the world. But I'm just wondering if there's a way to like build appreciation into into local and traditional foods for people, while still kind of opening up to a new food or a new food experience or something like that, because it's almost like you almost have to get out and try the new things, at least to a certain extent, at least for a few weeks or a few months, to then realize like what you have before is great and should be kind of you know, more than enough, or is often the healthier option or the better option. So but that's just a thought. Like, I don't know if you guys had any responses to that. You don't have to if you don't want to. But yeah, I'm seeing if there's anyone yet raising their hands. No, we have some people on, but not yet. So we only have a few minutes left, but I'm kind of going through. And Hazuki let me know. Hazuki's translating or interpreting for Kayo-san. So if there's anything Kayo-san wants to add, I just want to make sure we're not ignoring me there. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of going along with that question a little bit, but in the last few minutes, if you guys could just answer, what are some of the effective ways you're seeing, like in terms of education, you know, getting young people interested in kind of what's local, or maybe what's indigenous, or what's heritage food practices or ingredients. How are you finding success in that as slow food in Japan? Like, what are the effective ways to teach younger people about this and get them interested?
I think approaching to the younger generation is the biggest key. And I can't really say if it's effective or not at the moment, because the effect will come a lot later, I guess, by approaching younger generation. But when we talk about this kind of topic, like indigenous sovereignty and empowerment, it's easier to convey the message for younger generation, like university students or younger, like high schoolers, because they their ideology is not that established, and they don't have prejudice. They don't have like enough they don't have enough experience to judge anything. So when we talk about this kind of difficult and sensitive topics in a very flat way, based on the facts and what's happening around the world, it's easier for them to understand, and it's easier for them to build their own interpretation and their own attitude towards that kind of topic. Not only about indigenous topic, but also about food systems and imbalance and food sovereignty overall. So what we need to put more power on is to approach to younger generation. That's my current answer.
Okay, from me, there are two type of experiences that I've been feeling. This is something we should continue. One is I sometimes visit elementary schools to talk about why it's so important that we need to do local consumption. No, local production for local consumption, or we should consume whatever locally produced. And elementary school students, when they understand that, they boom, they change the perspective, and they tell their parents, and if they go shopping with their parents, they're like, where is it from? Like, is it from Okinawa? Why don't we choose it? Like, so if they know why we need to do that, they would just simply like take it as like, yeah, why not? So that's one thing. And the other thing is like one of the huge problem we are facing is because of the assimilation policy in Japan was, I would say it's a success, because Japanese colonized Okinawa, and Okinawa was colonized again by military, US military. Then Okinawan people said, we want to be back to Japan. So Okinawan people try to be Japanese like so bad. So it's like the mindset is like Japanese, Japanese, Japanese. So decolonizing, or like bring the wow moment, or like the moment of realization, like they know like this is colonized, or this is assimilation policy, is one of the key. And I bring my friends, or I bring those people to the opportunity, or the forums or conventions that are for indigenous people. And if they meet other indigenous people from international or from Ainu, they realize like we are indigenous people, and it's okay to be indigenous people. So that's like a wow moment for everyone. And we talk about sovereignty and so on. So those are the two things. Like I want to keep going. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Kayo-san, please. どうぞ。
大学でアイヌ文化のことを学ぶウレシパ大学という大学があって、そこで、踊りだったり歌や、いろんなことを学ぶ大学があります。そこで学んだ人たちが、白老のウポポイという施設で、学芸員になったりとか、あとはそうですね、伝統芸能を、伝えたりとか、若い世代の方がさらに力を持ってるアイヌのことをたくさん知ってる人たちが増えています。で、そうですね、アイヌのことに関わって、いろんなところで、お話ししたりする機会少しずつ増えたんですけれども、よくそこで聞くのが、自分たちのルーツがあるのが羨ましいというようなことを、よく言われます。私たち自身が、アイヌであることについて、さらにやっぱりもっと誇りを持っていきたい。そして、私たちが文化を楽しく伝えることでアイヌのことに興味を持ってもらって、アイヌ自身ももっと、自分たちのアイデンティティを強く感じていってもらえたらいいなと思います。
So there's actually a university where students study about Ainu culture. So they learn about they learn to do Ainu dances and songs, And they go on to become curators in Ainu-related centers. And she feels that there are more and more young generation people with young generations who are interested in the Ainu culture. So she remembers how when she went to a talk event where she talked about the Ainu culture, there was someone who said, "We envy you for having solid roots, so for having that culture as your backbone." And so she feels that it's important for her to continue spreading knowledge about her culture, and so that Ainu people themselves can also take more pride in their identity.
Okay, thank you very much, Kayo-san and Hazuki for the translation, and thanks to Dai and Megumi as well. I think we could continue chatting about all of this, but yeah, thank you guys very much for joining us. And I'm just gonna send along a link for the World Food Forum agenda. This is the final day of events happening for World Food Forum, I do believe, but there's some really cool Youth Action Assembly events still happening later on today, and a number of other kind of youth focused events. So thank you for joining our session from Japan, and please stay in touch with Slow Food Nippon, with Future Food Japan. And this is the first of hopefully many kind of discussions and activities that we'll be doing together in the coming years. So so thank you guys again very much. And everyone, if you'd like to unmute, if you'd like to say anything in Japanese or English, feel free to go ahead, and then afterwards we'll be closing the session out. But thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tandi ga tandi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all, and see you soon. Bye. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.